A Letter from Okinawa, Chie Sunshine Miyagi, with Peter Simpson, illustrated by Makoto Taira. A Letter from Okinawa, painting by Melinda, student, St. George Albert School, Jur, Hungary. Sachiko. Once there was a girl called Sachiko. Sachiko means happy child in Japanese. Sachiko. Sachiko was brought up on the tranquil coral island of Tokashiki, one of the Kerama Islands west of Okinawa. Island life. These 4 pictures show a typical day in Sachiko's life. Can you add captions to the 3 smaller pictures and draw a scene of your own? At school, Sachiko was taught how to speak and write Japanese and to love the Emperor of Japan. She was also taught to feel proud of soldiers who died fighting for their country. Sachiko did well at school and was lucky enough to continue her education in Okinawa. It was a sad day when Sachiko left, but it was also a day of celebration. War was approaching, but the students were not afraid. They had been taught to be strong, and that the highest honor was to die, helping the Japanese military. In April 1945, war arrived in Okinawa. Sachiko and her classmates were drafted into the Nurses' Corps. Many of them saw their friends die and still find it hard to describe the horrors of war in words or pictures. Sachiko was one of the lucky survivors. The Battle of Okinawa had killed close to 230,000 people and left 1 out of every 3 people on the island dead. After the war, she wrote a letter to her parents in Tokashiki. What would you have written? Sachiko never received a reply because nobody had the courage to tell her what her parents had done. If they had, this is what they might have written. On March 27, rain and US bombs were pouring from the sky. We felt our families had to die with honor. We went to the Japanese military camp as we'd been told. In the morning, the commander of the Japanese military on Tokashiki ordered us to end our lives. In the massacre that followed, more than 300 people killed themselves and their loved ones. Sachiko, how can I tell you what your mother and father were among them? How can I tell you what it feels like to survive? All we can do is go on living and make sure that no one else has to tell a story like this again. Dear readers, Sachiko is my mother. Her nurse's regiment, Zuisen, was named after a life-giving spring. But more than half her classmates had their lives taken away in the Battle of Okinawa. My grandparents were among the almost 230,000 people who died in the 3-month catastrophe. Their memory and my mother's story have helped me to understand the Okinawa saying, "Nuchidu takara." Life is the most precious treasure. My mother's survival was fortunate, and my life is a miracle. Like many survivors of the Battle of Okinawa, my mother can hardly bear to talk about the war. But when I visit Tokashiki, I can meet my unseen grandparents because I can trace their footsteps and feel their souls. Today, the world is full of chaos and conflict. At every breath and in every corner of the world, the treasure of life is thrown away. Whenever my mother watches the news of wars in Iraq or Afghanistan on TV, she is filled with anguish because she knows the terrible truth beyond the headlines and the images. More than 2,000 years ago, the Greek writer Aeschylus observed, "In war, truth is the first casualty. Now, as the Japanese government continues to rewrite history and to deny the mass murders in Nanking, the kidnapping of girls and young women into sexual slavery, and the forced suicides closer at home, Ischula's words are truer than ever.